Somewhere in the Canadian Arctic, on a strip of frozen gravel, a line of men is walking south, dragging a heavy wooden boat across the ice on a sledge. Inside that boat, rescuers would later find silverware, books, a pair of slippers, and two skeletons. These men were officers of the most advanced expedition the British Empire had ever sent north, and every single one of them was about to die. To understand how 129 men could vanish so completely that we are still finding their bones today, you have to go back to the morning they left, when the whole world expected them to succeed. They were never seen alive by European eyes again. It was the 19th of May, 1845. Captain Sir John Franklin sailed from England with two ships, HMS Erebus and HMS Terror, and a crew of 129 officers and men. Their goal was the Northwest Passage, the sea route through the top of the Americas that no one had ever completed. These were not amateurs. The ships had reinforced hulls, steam engines, and 3 years of tinned food. In late July, two whaling ships spotted them moored to an iceberg in Baffin Bay, waiting for the ice to open. Then they sailed west into the Arctic, and history simply lost them. What happened next had to be pieced together from a single sheet of paper and a trail of bodies. The ships became trapped in the ice near King William Island and did not move for over a year. On that one recovered note, a short line records that Franklin died on the 11th of June, 1847. By April 1848, the survivors abandoned both ships and set out on foot across the ice, hoping to reach the Canadian mainland hundreds of miles away. They were already dying. Scurvy was rotting their bodies, and their tinned food may have been slowly poisoning them with lead. None of them made it. Inuit hunters described seeing white men growing thinner and falling as they walked, and later found bodies with cut marks that told a darker story of starving men doing the unthinkable to survive. For over a century, the ships themselves were a mystery, until, guided by Inuit accounts passed down for generations, searchers finally found Erebus in 2014 and Terror in 2016, resting on the seabed exactly where the Inuit had always said they were. Our second expedition did not vanish over years. It ended in a single night, and what happened on that mountain has never been fully explained. It was the night of the 1st of February, 1959, in the northern Ural Mountains of the Soviet Union. 9 experienced hikers, most of them students from the Ural Polytechnic Institute, had made camp on a slope with a grim local name that translates roughly as Dead Mountain. Their leader was a 23-year-old engineering student named Igor Dyatlov. A 10th member had turned back days earlier because of joint pain, a decision that saved his life. When the group missed their expected return, searchers went looking. What they found made no sense. The tent was still standing, and it had been slashed open from the inside. The hikers had fled into a Siberian night at around -25 degrees, most of them without coats or boots, some in only socks. Their footprints led calmly down the slope toward the trees. The first bodies were found in the open snow, dead from hypothermia. But the last 4 were the reason this case still haunts people. Found months later in a ravine, they had severe internal injuries, crushed ribs, and a fractured skull. The kind of damage investigators compared to a car crash, yet with almost no external wounds. One woman was missing her tongue and eyes. Traces of radiation were found on some clothing. The Soviet investigation closed the case blaming a, quote, compelling natural force, and then sealed the files. For 60 years, theories multiplied, from avalanches to secret weapons tests. Only recently did modern studies point to a rare kind of delayed slab avalanche as the most likely trigger, though even now, not everyone is convinced. The last expedition is the strangest of the 3, because for 33 years, no one knew where it had gone at all. It simply rose into the sky and disappeared. It was the 11th of July, 1897. 3 Swedish men climbed into the basket of a hydrogen balloon called the Eagle and lifted off from a remote island near the North Pole. Their leader was an engineer named Salomon André, and his plan was breathtakingly bold: to float over the North Pole itself, something no one had ever done. He believed a balloon could cross the ice in days, where ships and sledges had failed for centuries. Almost no one had flown a balloon in the Arctic before. His two companions, Niels Strindberg and Knut Frankel, went with him anyway. As the Eagle drifted north and out of sight, one of the last things the world received from them was a message carried home by a pigeon. They did not make it far. The balloon leaked hydrogen and grew heavy with frost, and after only 2 days it sank down onto the pack ice, hundreds of miles from the pole. And here is the haunting part: the men survived the crash. They climbed out and began the desperate walk south across the shifting ice, dragging supplies, shooting polar bears for food. They kept diaries. Strindberg kept taking photographs. As the Arctic winter closed in, the three of them reached a frozen, deserted place called White Island. And there, sometime in October, they died. For 33 years they were simply gone, mourned as a national mystery. Then, in 1930, a crew of hunters stumbled on their last camp by chance. They found the diaries, the men's remains, and rolls of film that had lain frozen for 3 decades. When those films were carefully developed, ghostly images appeared: the crashed balloon on the ice, and the 3 men themselves standing beside it, still hoping they would make it home. 3 expeditions, a fleet of ships, a mountain camp, and a balloon. Each was led by capable, determined people who were certain their planning was enough, and each was swallowed so completely that the truth had to be recovered piece by piece, sometimes a century later, from a photograph or a note or the memory of the people who lived there all along. And that is the thing worth sitting with. The map still has quiet places that do not forgive a single mistake, and they are patient. If you want to hear the next story the ice gives back, subscribe and stay warm out there.